Welcome to USISPF Explains, with another series where we try to dive into the issues really affecting US-India relations. The cherry blossoms in the tidal basin in Washington, D.C. were out in full bloom, thus signifying the onset of spring in the nation's capital. Another marker for spring, however, is a flurry of delegates, right from finance ministers to the Treasury Secretary to the heads of multilateral institutions, all of whom descend on Washington, D.C. to discuss pertinent economic issues from climate finance to debt relief to infrastructure development, all issues affecting the global diaspora. These are now codified as the worldbank and IMF Spring Meetings. But what are these meetings? What is their significance? What goes on behind closed doors? So to explain more on what are these spring and fall meetings and what goes on, we have USISPF's Malachy Nugent, Vice President of Financial Services. Malachy, thank you for joining us and perhaps explain the method and the madness.
Thanks, Akshobh. Happy to be with you today. So as you say, the spring meetings of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, the Bank Fund Spring Meetings, are an annual gathering of finance ministers and central bank governors from around the world here in Washington, D.C. every spring, typically in April. It's an opportunity for these economic policymakers to get together and discuss global economic and development issues. And the spring meetings are a complement to the Bank Fund annual meetings, which take place in the fall, 6 months later, either here in DC or in one of the member countries of the World Bank and the IMF. And the annual meetings focus more on financial commitments, countries' financial commitments to the institutions themselves, governance issues, and they're more operational. Whereas the spring meetings are an opportunity for the bank and fund to share a lot of their latest research on key topics in macroeconomics and development, present their forecasts and operational plans for the coming year, and just generally engage bilaterally and multilaterally with their key stakeholders. So that's the countries that are members of the World Bank and the IMF, and also critically with external stakeholders, civil society, academia, and the private sector. And they do this through a series of official meetings with the finance ministers and central bank governors, and then seminars, panel discussions, other events on all manner of topics that are relevant to economic growth and poverty reduction. So topics around macroeconomic and financial stability, poverty reduction, sustainable economic development, trade, employment, global productivity, global health and education are perennial topics at these meetings. Climate change, gender equity, these are all issues that finance ministers and governors, central bank governors take up with their civil society and private sector counterparts here at these meetings. So overall, the spring meetings are best understood as just a platform for leaders and civil society to discuss critical economic issues and explore strategies to promote growth, financial stability, social welfare, and poverty reduction on a global scale.